we have to understand that people's schedules often do not go the way they thought they were going to go in the morning. So Tracey, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and get started. The way our webinars work is that Tracey is going to share what she's doing at Hutchison, and then we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for conversation and questions and reflection and any direction that this conversation wants to turn. So anyway, thank you, Tracey, for being here and for sharing your work with us.
Happy to do it. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity. My name is Tracey Zerwig Ford. I'm Director of Fine Arts in the Center, I have a new job. It used to be the Center for Excellence Director. We'll get to that in a minute, but now I'm Community Engagement Director. So that's exciting that they're kind of retooling what we're doing here at Hutchison and trying to go deeper in our partnerships. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. One of the things that has grown out of the Center for Excellence, which is community learning on Hutchison's campus, is the Community Partnership Roundtable. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how that got started, how we run it here in Memphis, and how impactful it's been for the school. All right, so I'm going to start my presentation. Don't hesitate to jot down some questions, and we'll get to those towards the end. So the Community Partnership Roundtable started when I came here from Arts Memphis. So before, my background is in the arts, and so as Fine Arts Director here, I came from Arts Memphis, and I took the faculty through a long-range planning process, just the fine arts faculty, and out of that grew the idea of an arts academy, which was utilizing the wonderful resources we have here at Hutchison in our stage, in our wonderful studio spaces, as an after-school hub for art making, not only for girls that go here at Hutchison, we're an all-girls school, but also for the community. So it invited the community on our campus, both boys and girls, adults and children, in an arts academy. 3 years in, we expanded that concept into the Center for Excellence, which was an umbrella term, and it houses not only an arts academy, but also a Scholars Academy, a Sports Academy, a Leadership Institute, Educated Institute, and Parent Center. So those 6 entities are coordinated under the umbrella term, the Center for Excellence. And in the Educator Institute, I always wanted to find a way to bring more partners into the conversation with teachers, and I ran into 3 women that I used to work with at Arts Memphis. They were all at different nonprofits in the arts, and when I was at Arts Memphis, I would host these coffees every quarter for the education and outreach directors at all the arts groups, and it was very wonderful. It was a great camaraderie. We could find out what each other was producing so there wasn't overlap, or if there was overlap, to find a way to share resources. And so we decided we missed those meetings, and so I started hosting them again through the Center for Excellence at Hutchison 3 years ago. And it grew from this small cohort of 7 folks into now, 3 years later, we just had one last week and there were 75 people there. And so those were all from all walks of the city. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what agencies and organizations are showing up. But the structure of the meeting is always the same. We've been hosting them for 3 years. We host 3 a year. But we always start with introductions to find out who's in the room. Then we ask a couple of people ahead of time to share partnerships that we know about that have grown from the previous meetings. And then people get to pitch their needs, but also their wants and their dreams. So you can pitch an idea that you're looking for a partnership, or you could pitch a need. If it's, it might be you need a resource that somebody might have. It might be a space need to host something, or it might be somebody even to come in as a co-sponsor. the schedule is super simple, and everybody knows it now. So everyone always plans around what they're doing so that they can make these meetings. We have a fall one that's early September. We have a winter one that's mid-January, and then we have an early March one. And so we have 3 a year, and so people really do plan around them because they want to be in the room. But the benefits have been invaluable, not only for Hutchison School, but also for these community partners that have started attending these meetings. So we network. We always leave time so that there's at least an hour and a half of network time available that people can introduce themselves and broaden their network. We have also the added benefit of expanding audiences when we share spaces or share an event. We have done an amazing job expanding everyone's audience and also sharing resources, whether that's sponsorship money, or it might be an object, or it might be expertise. All right, so it's a very eclectic mix of people that have started coming to these, and now we encourage people to share the invitation with maybe one of their partners that maybe has never stepped into one of our meetings. So the Community Partnership Roundtable has around the table, we have professional artists, we have visual and performing arts organizations, university and colleges, government agencies, school systems, both public and private, and parochial, service nonprofits, youth-oriented nonprofits, performing arts venues, and also funders have started coming as well, which is exciting. Here's just a quick snapshot of a quarter of the room where we're having them, but it's interesting to look at this this grouping because we have a woman who teaches classical Indian dance. We have the symphony represented in this picture. We have 3 different schools. We have the Children's Museum. We have the Alzheimer's and Dementia Services. We have the City of Memphis. We have 2 different museums represented in that grouping. A typical meeting, this is just kind of a rundown, just to kind of show you who's in the room. So we do have, some, you know, the school systems are represented, but also the library systems. And they've been a wonderful, very open partner for a lot of the agencies that are showing up. We have obviously my background in the arts, and most of my contacts are in the arts. So we have a big cohort of the performing arts and the museums there in the space in conversation, as well as now like city governments, both the county and the city governments, and the outlying smaller towns around Memphis that many of our students come from. They've started showing up as well, which is very interesting in the conversation. And what I wanted to talk to you about is just to give you a little snapshot of some of the partnerships that have grown out of the Community Partnership Roundtable. So Casa Teatro is a bilingual theater company in town. It's very recent. It's maybe 10 years old at the most. And our first meeting, they talked to the Brooks Museum of Art, which is our big traditional museum here that houses a large body of work of art. And they don't typically do so many community events, but they partnered with Casa Teatro and they hosted a Day of the Dead experience year 1. The second year after, you know, that was a success, they continued expanding, and now 3 years in, they're doing teacher training a month out. They are organizing events at the museum. They host altars that the community members can bring in for the month of October. And then they'll host a weekend of events at the museum. So from this one little, you know, coffee, you know, has grown this month-long event for Casa Teatro and the Brooks Museum of Art. And now teachers and schools are involved in it as well. The College of Art is a wonderful partner. They're at every meeting, and they're always so wonderful at plugging in where their students can be of assistance. So the health department our second year came, has been coming, and they had a need for, they wanted to do something around vaping, and so the College of Art, their graphic design students have designed posters that now are in 1,500 different locations that the College of Art was able to do for free, so that their students can develop more portfolio work and work professionally with a client. So that was a very exciting partnership for those two entities. Hutchison has had amazing partnerships through the Community Partnership Roundtable. An example, last year, Girl 24 Movement is a youth-oriented nonprofit that targets middle and high school girls, and they teach them all about entrepreneurship and branding and the power of networking. And then we partnered with them, and we actually hosted this weekend-long event around MLK 50, which is commemorating the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's death. And we hosted Paul Mitchell Studios at school in our dressing rooms, and the girls got to wear vintage 1960s clothing to get their makeup and hair done by the Paul Mitchell students. And then we did a photo shoot that then Arts Memphis hosted a month-long photography exhibit around. Another opportunity that's crept up through the Community Partnership Roundtable that I thought was interesting was a partnership with Hutchison, WKNO, which is our PBS affiliate, and then the National Civil Rights Museum. And our students got to actually go on site at the National Civil Rights Museum and shoot, edit, and create these spots for MLK 50, the commemoration year. And then those spots ran for 6 months on WKNO. Here's sample images at our photo shoot with Girl 24 and Paul Mitchell. Okay. The great thing about the Community Partnership Roundtable is that you have all these different people in the room, and so it's amazing the resource sharing that comes about through that. A lot of time they're needing volunteers, right? And we have 300 girls in our upper school who have to do service learning over the course of the year. So they're awesome, but through these conversations and developing these relationships now over the last 3 years, the resource sharing is so much deeper now. And I just have a couple of examples to show you. So these are 3 of our AP art girls. They helped pull hand-pulled printed posters for an upcoming exhibit at one of our museums, and they got to go and use the silk screening press over at the University of Memphis. So this high-end, wonderful, very expensive piece of equipment that we unfortunately don't have, but we had access to it through these Community Partnership Roundtables. It was a need, and it was a very fun opportunity for our girls. Another example is we were producing Pride and Prejudice, and we needed a location. So one of our wonderful museums were able to allow us to have a photography workshop on site, and then use their back porch as the front of the Bennett's house. But it was really exciting for both for the girls to be on a location shoot. So our digital photography girls got to go over, and our digital media girls got to then edit and lay out our Pride and Prejudice posters. So I wanted to show the Strong Girl Fest as kind of a case study. The Community Partnership Roundtable, we host, the first one is always in September, and we decided to reinvent how we were doing open house. And so we threw it out to the Community Partnership Roundtable to help us create a girl-centric event where they could come and be a partner in creating an amazing experience for the community on Hutchison's campus. We have 52 acres in the middle of the city. and we're in a tri-state area. So it's a great location to do something like this because you're drawing girls from 3 different states. And so with our partners, we were able to host this event that had art making, science experiments, nature. We have a farm, a working farm, so the girls got to do hands-on there. We had engineering tasks and activities for them to do, as well as sports and fitness. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for all of these community partners to take part and to help make it successful. Our main co-presenter was the Girl Scouts, which as a girls' school, they are an amazing community partner for us. We do a lot with them. So I'm going to show you guys a little clip from the Commercial Appeal, which is our major paper in town, just so you can kind of see a little bit of our partners. Okay, just thinking about it. Sorry about the ad. I'm gonna unmute it once the ad is over.
Tracey, I'm not seeing anything.
You're not seeing it?
No, am I the only one that's not seeing it?
Here we go. Try this. Can you see it?
No.
Here, just a second.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so let me get back to my PowerPoint. So some of the partners that came on board to help us with this Strong Girl Fest was the Dixon Gallery and Gardens, their wonderful museum and botanic garden in town, the Girl Scouts. We had Perfecting Gifts, which is a new gospel nonprofit, and they brought their choir over. We had Princeton James performances. He's a producer in town and trains some women recording artists that came and performed. Company D is a Down syndrome dance company that kicked off our main stage that day. Project Motion is our modern dance company in town, as well as we had Indian dance, the opera performed, and then Young Actors Guild performed some Lion King excerpts. But it was an amazing festival. The kids loved it. Here's some pictures of some of the performances. It was a super diverse group. And we ended up, let me go back. We ended up hosting over 1,300 people that one day for 4 hours. So in 4 hours, we had 1,300 people, the majority of them girls and their families, come through on that one day. The Dixon Gallery and Gardens, the museum, is a wonderful partner, and it started with simply us going to their museum, and we wanted to paint in the garden, do some plein air paintings, and so we have these little gorilla watercolor boxes. We took them out and we would do tours. And so we started that. But then when we started the Community Partnership Roundtable, one of the original partners was the Dixon. And so we started doing more with them. So it grew into shared summer camps, and half of the camp would be in the museum looking at the art, and then the other half would be at Hutchison, and we're about 2 miles away, but we would take them back and forth. The girls would come here, the girls and boys, and do some painting in our art studios with our art teachers. And so we were sharing PR, but so we were growing that audience because we're pulling from both networks. And then that eventually grew into shared events. We still do actually create family events that happen either at the museum or at Hutchison, and we're promoting it both places and tapping into each other's resources. So we've done amazing performances at the museum, as well as they have conducted amazing workshops for us here on site. They always come in as a wonderful partner using their teaching artists. And then we have shared projects. One of them was the Isabel de Bourschgrave dress exhibit, and I have examples of that. So here's how we started, just going on site, painting in the gardens with the kids, and then eventually sharing summer camps. And then we started producing plays that then would culminate in a performance at their on site at their location, where we would have 200 families watching one of our theater productions. And then the Art of Camping was a blast. We helped them structure activities, and we had some of our teaching artists, some of our fine arts teachers out there helping create that event. And then again, here's another example of a performance that started in rehearsal at Hutchison, but then culminated out there. And then the de Bourschgrave was a year-long project that started through conversations at the Community Partnership Roundtable that eventually grew into fashion camps where the girls created their own. This woman creates dresses out of paper. So there she is standing with 2 of our AP artists. And then those dresses that you see also noted on the slide, those are made out of paper. She hand prints all of them and makes all of the lace, everything is paper. And so there's our girls exploring that concept. And here are girls at the Dixon in a fashion show that culminated their family event. Right. And then one of the also interesting things that has happened is that they have started creating exhibit space then for artwork that has been created in conjunction with an exhibit that's happened. Every spring they'll host an exhibit for a month of works of art that our kids have created, so our girls are getting space in their museum to show their work. Okay, and so here's some guiding principles that we just have developed over the years: is plan early, be neighborly, share, and the openness, and to be open to ask for what you need or when you need help, but also to share the vision, co-create the vision, and it's okay if things change, right? I will share these slides if you are interested at the end. And so that's the end of the slideshow, and I'll turn it over to Blake so that we can have a conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I have a million, I think this is phenomenal, and so many creative partnerships out of your roundtable. I will leave it to others for questions before I take over. So please feel free to speak up if you have questions, comments, want to share something that works at your school that's similar. All is helpful.
Completely agreed on all those fronts that Blake just shared. This is Eric Rowland up at Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. And Tracey, very impressive to see the range of partnerships and the ways in which those partners think about working with one another. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I wonder if you could share a bit more about these roundtable discussions and particularly around like, forgive me for like getting into the weeds on this, but like, what does an agenda look like? And is it co-created? And like, how do you make the best use of the time there to try to surface these good ideas that people have?
Absolutely. Happy to do that. First and foremost, like we organize the event on our end, so we'll host them at Hutchison, but then we freely afterwards share out everybody's contact information who was there at the meeting. So, you know, we're not gathering names and numbers, you know, for ourselves, but we are always immediately that day, at the end of that day, we'll blast out who was at the meeting and everyone's contact information so that people can find each other. We purposefully did not want to have an agenda because we wanted to keep the meeting open and for people to bring their needs and their wants and their aspirations to the meeting. So it truly starts with we first introduce who we are sitting around the room and what our title is at that entity, and then at our organization. And then we will have 2 or 3 folks talk about a partnership that has grown since and out of our last meeting, to give an example, a couple of examples, how we share and help each other. And then we literally pitch the needs, you know, like if somebody has a need, and then if somebody has a want. And that is literally it. But I think that's why people don't mind coming to these meetings, right? Because it feels very much like a little coffee club. I think it's so funny that it's called, you know, CPR, because it really is, you know, because I don't know if you guys work with very many nonprofit education and outreach directors, but, you know, they're usually low on the totem pole, and they, you know, but they love these meetings because it is like a little support group, sort of, because everyone is there for the greater good and to help each other. It's really, so you always come out of those meetings feeling jazzed. They always take place at 8:30 in the morning, and I always have buckets of coffee and scones and fruit, you know, and so they feel, you know, it feels very much like a little coffee club, but it just has grown to a crazy size. I think the biggest one we've ever had was, I think one time we had 85, 90 people there, and we almost didn't fit in the room. Like, I was like, oh, do I need to have it in a different room? But it's so fun how people now, you know, and we always tell them, feel free to share the invitation, because it's fascinating to see who shows up.
It's great. It's great. And how long do they run usually, from 8:30?
You know, I would like to say, oh, we hold it to an hour, but honestly, the last time we had it, like a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago now, September 4th, the last person left campus at 10:15. Started at 8:15. But you know, that's why I have a space that is kind of off to itself, and people can stay and network. But I'm just thrilled that people are really using it as a resource and tapping each other's time and talent.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Sorry if you hear, their kindergartners are having lunch behind me, so it's a little noisy. Tracey, how do you guys work out payment between the various partnerships? That's what we run into. Our issue is really that cost of working with the Children's Museum or any other nonprofit. It's all about the money. So
yes, right.
With the garden, how do you work on that?
You know, it's interesting because with the different agencies, our nonprofits, it's different. Most of our museums, it's free to go. But unfortunately the busing isn't free, right? So that's, you know, so that's tough. Although I'm in Memphis, so I don't know if you know, but Hutchison School is smack dab in the middle of Memphis, and we have a very generous community. And so most of our museums and a lot of our theater groups will have a busing budget that you can apply for. So like cost really isn't a factor to get to these agencies for our school groups. As far as like if we were putting on an event together, I'm always quick to talk about it up front and to together craft a budget, what it's going to cost, and to be very upfront and honest about, well, we probably can't do that because it's not in the budget for this year, you know. But like with some of my community partners, we're talking about events that are at least 12 months, sometimes 24 months out. With the Dixon now, they share with me 2 years in advance what exhibits are coming so that we can plan together if there is an opportunity. We're working on an event for November 16th, a family day at the museum around abstract expressionism. So we've been talking about that for about 1.5 years because they were concerned that people were not necessarily going to jump in and come to that exhibit. So we've been working with them on how to promote and expand their audience for that. But I always find just be upfront about what you can do, what you can't do, what you could bring. And honestly, I leverage my space as a partner. That's one of the things that I think the school brings to the table is we have very large performing spaces. We have lots of art studios and dance studios and music studios. And so a lot of times we're partnering with folks that need that kind of space, but then could bring a performance for free to us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Liza Littenberg Tobias. I work at a charter school here in Boston, so I have 2 questions. One is for your partners who you mentioned who are either charter schools or public schools who just generally have fewer resources and time or money. How has that typically looked for those schools? And then how do you as a coordinator for this bring this back to other folks at your organization to help be a liaison for these partnerships?
Sure. One of the things that I feel like is my role as Fine Arts Director and Community Engagement Director, connect the partners to classroom teachers or the division head here on campus that it would be most impactful. A lot of times I will host a meeting before school or after school with a community partner and a group of teachers to do some planning. And we'll plan out together with those classroom teachers. And then I usually take over the logistics side of it because they're busy grading papers or whatever. But also then I know that it's done, but also so that I can advocate for them with their division head. Hutchison has an interesting leadership structure in that I sit on the leadership team of the school. So, which I think that's probably an anomaly. There's not probably many fine arts directors that sit on that level, that executive level. And so I always make sure that I advocate and also that I promote those partnerships that are happening. So I find ways to make sure it's in the weekly push to the families that this is going on. We find ways to celebrate it on campus and off campus, and that the school staff member is always in the loop in any of the plans, especially because things change every once in a while. There'll be a change in logistics, so I try to keep everyone connected that way. But I really do act as point person just because I have my computer in front of me when somebody else might have 20 sixth graders staring at them.
I have questions, but I didn't want to take anybody else's space, so feel free to jump in. So what are the challenges that you find? You're bringing together such a fantastically diverse group of organizations and schools. How do you make sure that everyone feels how do you manage inclusion in that some there will be outliers in that big group where matches aren't made?
Right. I think that's the power of that networking time. We do the pitches, and a lot of times people will come with something that they need, but maybe not feel comfortable enough to throw it out to the overall group. But there is a lot of plans made just during that networking, that one-on-one time. And so I also love the fact that it is totally, we welcome people that we didn't even know were coming to the meeting, right? So people are bringing other folks into the conversations. And so what we make sure we do when after the meeting is we go in and we include all of those people in the big group email list then, and to make sure that we're always building out that list. That list is probably 125 people long now. So 125 different agencies are represented in that list. And then we just make sure that everyone always knows when those meetings are, but also what we hope to get out of them is to bring your pitch, bring your need, or if you have a resource, if you have something that's coming up that we might need to know about. An interesting pitch that was made the last meeting we had on September 4th was one of the schools there was given a grant to screen a brand new documentary film, but they needed a space because they wanted to open it up to the community. And so University of Memphis was in the room. And so they're opening up they have beautiful state-of-the-art theater that can sit about 900 people. So they'll be hosting that school's event for them.
Wow. So are you keeping track of these wins that are happening sort of under your umbrella? And what's the data look like? Because I know we don't go into these things looking to track data, but it's probably important to do.
Yes, it probably is important to do, Blake. Thanks for bringing that up. I do not, because honestly, part of me is like, I don't really want to, it's not my success really. All I'm doing is making sure there's scones and coffee in the room. I don't know. I am one of those people that I let it happen, but I don't need to own it. And you're right. I should track this stuff. But honestly, I don't know if I could keep up with it because it's interesting. All of those conversations are happening in the room. Like I probably only know of a fourth of those partnerships. Right. Yeah.
So even just a survey at the end of the year asking what you got out of them.
That's a great idea. Yeah, no, I love that.
You grow, you might not want to be paying for the scones in the Starbucks. So funders are going to be interested in how the community partnership roundtables are serving the community, right? And because they're not likely to give Hutchison money for scones in Starbucks, but they are probably likely to give something for the greater good. I don't know. I'm always asking because it's a place where there's very little data for me to even rely upon to say, this is why we should be doing things like this.
Right. I totally agree. Like even just the value added to like over the course of a year, like how many partnerships Hutchison has had and that has grown out of these conversations are immeasurable. I did create a document. We created a survey last year to kind of start gathering those, and it was very unwieldy because there were so many. We are are in age 2 through grade 12 schools. So you can imagine, what a partnership looks like in early childhood is so different than what it looks like in upper school. But to try to track some of that, because we'll have some community partners that are coming, twice a month, and seeing, 100 different students from
Right.
2 different divisions. So we're trying to track that better internally, just as a school, what we're doing in engagement, but also what do we mean by a partnership? What does a partnership really look like? And so we're really careful in making sure that, it's co-owned.
Right. There's a framework to what we're talking about. I find that in our work on a daily basis that you have to keep reminding everybody what we mean when we talk about a community engaged partnership.
Yes.
And how that's different from a fiscal relationship with an organization.
Right.
Just a plug, because I can't resist. Our conference is in January, and we're doing a pre-conference this year at Penn Charter School, which is a Quaker school outside. It's in Philadelphia. Sorry, it's not even outside. And it's all about assessment. It's 4.5 hours of 4 schools sharing how they're tracking the impact of the work they're doing, and then some time and space for the attendees to look at the ways that they could be tracking whatever they want to track, however they define the impact or the outcomes that they're looking for. One of the schools is going to be sharing how they've decided this year to track the level of joy that partnerships are bringing all of the participants. And that's what the outcome that they are looking to look at. Anyway, it's not why I asked you the question. I'm sort of fascinated by how schools look at this work. And also I constantly want to remind people that that having that data is going to be helpful as this gets bigger and bigger, to show your growth and the impact that you're having on Memphis as a whole, right? Imagine in 10 years, these meetings could really have had demonstrable impact, right?
That's right.
But Blake, I'm sorry to jump in, but I was just going to say this is definitely running through my mind as well. And one of the things that that surfaced during the course of your presentation, Tracey, is the question of, if you were not doing this, then who would? And I wonder if there's something there, to Blake's point, to demonstrate the power of this organization playing a role where absent Hutchison, there would be a vacuum. Conceivably, and I imagine your partners would back you up on that. But it sounds like you're playing the role of enabler in a good way that didn't previously exist. Sorry to cut you off, Blake, but just a thought that had come to my mind.
Thanks. I appreciate the comment.
Sorry, go ahead.
Blake, I'm excited about your upcoming conference, and I actually just submitted a proposal because one of the other partnerships that have grown out of the Community Partnership Roundtable is the Girl Scouts for us. And obviously they are such a like-minded nonprofit because they're only serving girls, and it's all about service and leadership, which is very central to our school as well. And so we have an amazing partnership with them, and we are right now on the cusp of, it is one of those partnerships where we are doing so much with them that we need to codify how and really take a look at how much of our time and energy is spent, helping them serve girls, but then also looking at what's the value added and what kind of benefit are we reaping as a school from it. It's a very interesting partnership that we're looking at closely.
So what does that partnership look like with your girls at school?
Well, they tasked us with piloting a brand new strand of Girl Scout for high school girls. So it's Girl Scouts that's only service and leadership focused, no badges, no cookies. But you can grow through it and hit your gold award, which is the equivalent, right, of the Eagle Scout, which opens up a lot of college scholarships, but also entrance into leadership, immediate entrance into leadership programs and honors programs at the college level. So we're piloting that for the national office for Girl Scouts USA. And so that's one of the pieces. And then we also host leadership experiences for them. I actually sit on the Girl Scout board. And so I'll know it's just very, there's just many, many ways. And then they're this major partner with the Strong Girl Fest. This year, our Strong Girl Fest is October 5th. We're expecting over 2,000 girls.
And because I'm always trying to find the ways you can connect the value of this work to different parts of your school, the Strong Girl Fest, how did that translate into applications and admissions for your school? While probably not your primary intent, certainly a lovely secondary outcome of a good day, right?
That's exactly right. One of the reasons that we wanted to kind of retool our open house is that the open house was feeling very stale. We didn't feel like it was really drawing people in. And this was a much more interesting, immediate way to have the public interact with our amazing faculty and staff and see what we do, where we do it, and also, you know, open up the campus to maybe a non-traditional family. So it did result in a lot of people coming to admissions, wanting tours. This year, we're actually doing tours through our early childhood program the day of. So that day, people can immediately tour the school.
Right. Get them while they're there, right?
Right. Exactly.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any other questions? I could monopolize the last 10 minutes easily. All right. So Tracey, where do you see this being in 10 years?
I think the Community Partnership Roundtable, it would be interesting to see if we could grow some smaller cohorts out of it that are maybe focused on strategic initiatives tied to the school's initiatives. For example, I could see it'd be interesting to host a Community Partnership Roundtable around just STEM for girls and invite like St. Jude, FedEx, AutoZone, you know, the major industries and businesses, and get them around the table as well. To me, that's the next area of growth. It was interesting, this last one that we held, there were a couple of for-profit agencies there. Like, so Hilton was in the room, which was fascinating and fun. And then they ponied up to actually help fund a caregiver summit for the Alzheimer and Dementia Day Services program.
Is that because they have a corporate social responsibility arm and so they want to be involved in the community?
It actually happened because we have a new family who's one of their parents is on the board of one of these nonprofits that I hosted their summer camp for them. She was on site this summer. She's a general manager at a major property in town, and then for Hilton. And so she's a new parent. I plugged her into some other events and ways to get involved, but then she came to the Partnership Roundtable as well. I was glad she did. They're actually coming on board at the Strong Girl Fest, and they're donating 2,000 books.
Wow, that's great.
Participants.
And so you mentioned, is that part of the funders that you mentioned that are showing up?
Yes.
And do you have foundations as well that you're
Yes, we
starting
do.
to see?
We do. We have foundations, as well as like Arts Memphis is the major, is the United Fund Drive for the Arts. They're funding a lot of the agencies in the room, and they're coming now.
And how are they getting the word to come?
Honestly, it's through the arts groups, I think, are inviting people, as well as I'm inviting people as we meet them. And it's truly word of mouth. I wish it was more organized, but it's people reposting that invite that we send out.
And you have social media attached to this?
You know what? We don't have specific social media attached to the Community Partnership Roundtable, but I could see that would be an area of growth if we wanted to grow this. I almost feel like I need to be careful though when they're landing, because, right now we're hosting them during the school day. And so, parking is really at a premium,
right,
during a school day. And so if they keep growing, we are going to have to get clever about when we're having them, and maybe having them on a day when some of our students are off campus for some reason.
Or you could have them at one of your partners.
We could. I know. And part of me is like, sure, that makes perfect sense. But then I'd hate for them not to see Hutchison as a community resource, right? Then I'm just another person in the room. That's interesting. The Center for Excellence as community learning on Hutchison's campus has been so powerful in positioning the school as a leading voice in some kind of aspect, like this Community Partnership Roundtable. But there's been several other ways that we can host things and position ourselves as the leader.
And not to go back to the admissions and the marketing and the development, all the advancement that goes along with Hutchison, but how is this all shared with your community, that Hutchison is, the center point for this community work? Is that being shared out, or is it, again, word of mouth?
It's our community, meaning the Hutchison community.
Yes.
Yeah, I make sure to invite those folks, especially in upper school, that this could be very impactful, an impactful meeting for. Like if there's somebody coming that I know that I want to connect them to, I'll make sure they're in the room. But I always have at least 2 to 3 other staff members from Hutchison in the room to network and create connections. So the women who have taken over the directorship of the Center for Excellence, I make sure they're always in the room to be networking for their branch of Hutchison, but also the woman who's directing Hutchison Serves, which is our service learning program. She's usually always in the room as well, because there's so many opportunities for our girls to volunteer or do internships or fellowships. Excuse me.
Bless you. So, what about to your parents?
We will post on social media when we have these, but I would say we don't do a big concerted effort because, frankly, their parents and they're interested in the learning that's happening, in the classroom. But we definitely could do a better job, I think, at the board level, letting them know the impact of the roundtable.
Yeah, I just think parents are millennials at this point, especially your 2-year-old kids.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really important to millennials. I mean, all the research about which jobs they're taking, about giving back to their community, et cetera, having some sort of purpose, that you might really have another side benefit of having higher parent engagement in some of the areas that you're working on with your community relations, if they knew that it was happening. I'm just always.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that especially if we do some targeted roundtables, it would be great to get some parents in the room representing their industry.
Right. I mean, it seems like low-hanging fruit, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? No, I'm very conscious of the time, and I'm really grateful for everybody giving up or not giving up, taking the hour to hear about this. I love this. You know what, the part that resonates with me is it's very easily replicated because you can see how you can start small and grow it out, and it doesn't seem terribly intimidating, expensive, and then to be able to see where you've grown this is really inspiring. And so back to tracking data, I leave these meetings feeling inspired about what schools are doing, and the opportunity that something that Hutchison is doing could happen in Oklahoma or Dallas or what have you. It must be the same way that your participants at your roundtables feel when they leave, because they must feel so inspired that they're going to be able to forge these partnerships. And that's the kind of data you'd like to know. Like, do the roundtables affect the quality of how you feel about your job, right? At the end of the day, wouldn't that be great? All these directors of these small nonprofits are feeling better and more hopeful because of your roundtables. I think that would make you feel great to collect that data. So anyway, that's the last of I won't bring up data again, I promise. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. All of this will be on our YouTube channel, probably by the end of the day. So should you want to share this out with anybody who would like to watch it, feel free to do so. The slides will project right onto the video, so you don't need Tracey to share them out.
Okay, great.
But everybody has everybody's email address from the invitation. And if you need anything or a connection, by all means, please reach out to me. I'm happy to make connections. Back to Ross and doing the purpose thing, that was part of my statement of purpose, is connecting people. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I hope you have a good rest of your week. And I hope to see you all in October, where we're going to talk about Winchester Thurston and their vision of city as their campus. So I will see you all soon. Thank you all. Have a good
Blake.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.